Hello, it's John Heaton. This evening, I'm going to have a go at reviewing the red and the blue, which are double albums, both of them, compilation albums, came out in 1973. Before I review them, I just want to say, you probably realised this if you watch my channel, I'm not too fond of compilation albums. I think you lose the context of the original album, you lose the continuity and the mood, and it's a bit unnerving skipping from era to era, from track to track with the Beatles especially, because they change so much that it's literally a different listening experience depending on whether you're listening to Please Please Me or Help or Pepper or Abbey Road. It just depends what mood you're in. So to put it all on one album, or to try and put it all on two double albums, is tough. So before I talk about the red and the blue, I'm just going to talk about the compilations which had preceded it and which came after it, none of which are perfect. So Oldies But Goldies came out in '66, and this collected mainly the singles. Couple of album tracks, yeah, Michelle's on here, and Bad Boy, which was only released in the States at this time. So it rounded up the singles pretty nicely. I mean, I wouldn't have objected to it at the time had I been old enough to buy it. And then in 1970, Alan Klein supervised this album to come out, which again collected up some odd singles and not odd singles, sorry, some great singles, like Hey Jude and Lady Madonna, together with a couple of B-sides, Don't Let Me Down and Revolution. And this album worked very well as a it is a compilation, a very early attempt at it, and nice job from Alan Klein and a brilliant cover. And then what happened is the Beatles split, and early in '73 some bootlegs started appearing, and I think they were called Alpha Omega. And Alan Klein and all the people in the Beatles camp got very nervous. They said, oh, these bootlegs are selling like hotcakes, so we better put out an official product. So, to Alan Klein's eternal credit, this is probably his greatest contribution towards the Beatles, in my opinion. He not only put together these two albums, but he ensured that John's original idea for the cover of what was supposed to be the Get Back LP, supposed to showing how they'd changed in 6 years, didn't go to waste and was used superbly on the red and the blue. And I've said it many times before in different videos. There's no two pictures for me which sum up the journey, the short journey that the Beatles went on. It's pretty cool to see them side by side as well. So superb packaging, and it's not always the case with compilation albums, as I'll mention in a little while. And the gatefold sleeve is a great picture taken in St Pancras Gardens on the Mad Day Out, 1968. You probably familiar with this, the Beatles hidden away amongst the crowd. Great picture. So before I talk about the actual track listing, I'll just show you my beautiful red vinyl copy, which I picked up. It wasn't too expensive actually. I was very happy with the price I paid for this a couple of years ago. And I've actually just ordered a blue vinyl, 67 to 70, and it should be waiting for me in London when I go there in a couple of days' time. So the track listing, I mean, they've obviously included every single single the Beatles put out, but they've also tried to put in a few album tracks and represent the period. So this is the early period up until '66. So from Love Me Do up until Revolver, those were the albums. That was the period where they had to select tracks from for the Red album. And I'm pretty happy with. I don't actually listen to this album. I have to admit, I don't think I've ever listened to it more than maybe once all the way through. But I respect this compilation because it was around when I was growing up, and I think a lot of people did get into the Beatles this way, through discovering the Red album in the mid-70s and the Blue album. Certainly remember people talking about it. So, you know, album tracks such as And I Love Her is on here, 8 Days a Week, which wasn't a single in the UK, together with a whole load of album tracks from Rubber Soul, which I think Alan Klein must have decided were more accessible to a casual fan than perhaps some of the tracks on Revolver, which is probably true. So you've got a track from Help, you've got To Hide Your Love Away, and then you've got Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, Michelle, In My Life, and Girl, all from Rubber Soul, and Revolver is only represented by Eleanor Rigby and Yellow Submarine. And I think we can agree that Eleanor Rigby and Yellow Submarine only scratched the surface as far as Revolver's concerned. So that album, Revolver, is underrepresented. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the Red album. And then, incidentally, I'm not surprised that they issued double albums. If you tried to condense it any further, I think you get into big problems. So this was the Blue album. I mean, this copy is on original, this is a French copy on original black vinyl with the blue background there. Actually, I read today that in Spain, because the Ballad of John and Yoko was banned in Spain, that track was replaced on this album by One After 909, which I think is quite an interesting choice and a nice one to the Spanish, whoever it was who decided to include that Let It Be album track. Superb. So the Blue album continues where the Red left off, with the Strawberry Fields Penny Lane single leading off the album, and then selections from Pepper, Mystery Tour, White Album, Abbey Road, and Let It Be. I think more so than the Red album, this album is difficult to listen to because, taken out of context, I don't think Sgt. Pepper, with a little help from my friends, works terribly well. I think it's better to listen to that as a complete album. Same with Mystery Tour, and same with the White Album, really, and Abbey Road. To listen to this hodgepodge of songs is a little bit difficult, and I don't do it. So Klein chose Octopus's Garden from Abbey Road and didn't choose anything from Paul, which probably didn't please Paul. Having said that, it would have been definitely the wrong thing to take off bits of the melody and put that on here. The one track he could have put on here, I think, would have been Oh Darling. And good to see some singles rounded up here and included Get Back, Don't Let Me Down, the B-side of Get Back, Ballad of John Yoko, and its B-side Old Brand Shoe. So I'm pretty happy with the track listing here, and again, can't emphasize how great the packaging is enough. Since then, what have we had? We've had Rock and Roll Music, came out in '76, which is not a bad compilation of the rockier side of the band, but with a dreadful cover. And apparently John did offer to do the cover for Capitol, and they refused and did their own cover. And I'm not going to show it to you because I don't even have it. I think the cover's a disaster, the concept was okay. And then the following year, 1977, the companion volume came out, Love Songs, another double album of the gentler side of the band. Serves a purpose, I suppose. Didn't buy it myself. And good picture on the cover of this one, which is shown more clearly on the gatefold. Don't have it to show it for you, unfortunately. And then, since then, we've had a succession of pretty diabolical compilations, like the Beatles' 20 Greatest Hits came out in 1980, the Beatles' Ballads came out in 1982, The anthology came out in '95, which was interesting, but again, it doesn't really flow well to take tracks from different eras and try and play them together. For that reason, I don't listen to the anthology very often. Yellow Submarine soundtrack probably works best out of all of the compilations because it takes the music from the Yellow Submarine film and adds a couple more from the period, and just makes a really good job of it, and that does flow well together. Mark Lewison put together Past Masters volumes 1 and 2, which rounded up all the tracks which were not on albums, mainly singles, and that did serve a purpose, but the cover is so unimaginative. I don't even have it to show you, but it's just got the Beatles Past Masters in capital letters. Terrible. And I'm afraid the one compilation, which although it sold very well, very unimaginative cover. I don't know who sits in EMI thinking up these covers, but someone needs to do their job better because it's a disgrace, really. The Love album, don't play it very often. Not a bad concept and a good, very successful show in Las Vegas, but again, the compilation album, I don't like the way they've mixed tracks and done little medleys and stuff. Quite annoying, really. And then just briefly mention some compilations from the solo years. They all have their problems. Wing's Greatest is predictable. Best of George Harrison was half George, half Beatles. Blast from Your Past from Ringo lasted less than half an hour, and Shaved Fish was okay up to a point, but obviously it only covers up until '75 from Lennon. So I'm not even going to talk about all the other compilations which have come out. As I say, I don't really think that's the way to get into the Beatles, although if you're a casual fan watching, you may disagree. So if you are a casual fan and you really don't want to buy the 13 albums, and you want to start somewhere, again, I would still recommend you pick up a couple of the original albums like Rubber Soul and Abbey Road. But if you're really desperate to get a compilation which covers the whole era, you could do a lot worse than picking up the Red and the Blue. So this is the jewel in the crown as far as Beatles compilations is concerned. And thanks for watching. See you next time.